Welcome, everyone. You are joining the LEED for Cities Planning for Platinum session. I'm going to turn it over to Jason Wood in a moment to give us a more formal introduction, but just a few pieces that I want to make sure we go over. If you've been in other summit sessions, you are probably have heard these before, but first we want to thank our host, the Cleveland Public Library, for allowing us to use the Hop-In platform. It's been a great way for us to get a lot of different breakout sessions and I think still achieve some of the intents of our summits that we normally would have in person. A few things just want to draw your attention to. If you look at the top right of your screen, you can minimize the chat and poll information so that your view can be a little bit bigger, especially if there are presentations or slides. It helps to see those a little bit better. I will also point you to the poll area, though. We do have just a couple questions for our audience to see who's here and how familiar you are with the LEED certification platform. We ask, please use the chat box for any comments or questions. We definitely will have opportunities for questions after kind of each of our presenters, maybe one or two, and then of course at the end. And we're going to do some interactive discussion towards the end of this session as well. Hopefully we have enough time to get into some good conversation. So again, use the chat, and if need be, we can even pull some of you on camera to share your comments or questions as well. Another just point in terms of when you are viewing it, you can click pin to make the presentation larger on your screen. And finally, as always, please continue to stay connected with us either through social, web, or e-newsletter. If you're sharing anything about the summit today, we ask please use the hashtag sustainableCLE. And with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Jason to kick things off.
Thanks, Kristen. So this is actually the easiest introduction of the whole summit. So hopefully you were with us yesterday when we announced that Cleveland's been recognized as a LEED Silver City. We've been working on that application at the Office of Sustainability for a better part of a year. And after a lot of hard work from a lot of different folks, we were able to certify at the LEED Silver level. And it's something we're incredibly proud of and something we're incredibly excited about. I would assume that most of the folks who are in this session were also in the session right before this with David Abel from USGBC, where he kind of went through some of the specifics of our application. So I think we're going to continue to celebrate the success and be really proud of what we've done. But now it's time to also start to think about how do we start to advance and grow and do a little bit better in some of the areas where maybe we weren't as strong. So if you sat through David's presentation, you saw that there were two areas in particular on the LEED for Cities scorecard where we scored a little bit lower than we probably would like to. One of those being energy and greenhouse gas emissions, and then the other being materials and resources. So really looking at a lot of waste and kind of how we're handling materials and materials processing and flow through our region. So what we wanted to do with this second session is really start that dialogue now. So we have three folks with us today who will go into a whole lot more detail about some specific things that their organizations are already doing to help us advance and do better in those areas. We have Cindy Sisogoy, who is the Executive Director of the Cleveland 2030 District, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the things they're doing around energy efficiency, working with commercial building partners and water efficiency. And then we've got Sarah O'Keefe, who is the Director of Sustainability for the Metro Health System, who is going to really talk about some of the really neat stuff they're doing as they're updating and modernizing their campus and their facilities. And then Marie Fetchick Kirk, who is the Manager of Sustainability and Special Projects at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, who has been a tremendous partner for us in so many ways. He's going to talk a little bit about the activities over at the Sewer District. So I'll get out of the way and leave it to the folks who are going to kind of talk here. And Cindy, we'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Let me share my slides real quick. Okay, are we good? Again, I'm Cindy Sisogoy, the Executive Director of the Cleveland 2030 District. So happy to be here with you today. Thanks for inviting me. Just want to give you a little overview of the district and who we are and what we do. We're a nonprofit organization working to mitigate the effects of the commercial building sector on climate change. Buildings join us voluntarily and they pledge to reduce their energy consumption, water use, and transportation emissions by 50% by the year 2030. Obviously, all three of those metrics are pertinent to the LEED for Cities application. By doing this, our buildings not only reduce their carbon footprint, but they also become more operationally efficient and save money. One of the biggest advantages that I see to the district is that this is a voluntary movement. We've created a community of real estate properties, building owners, managers, who are all committed to the environment and lessening their impact on climate change. Architecture 2030 was the creator of the 2030 districts model. They're a think tank and really a premier authority on the built environment and its role in climate change. They find that commercial buildings are responsible for almost 40% of global carbon emissions. Furthermore, they feel that by 2060, it's expected that we will double the global building floor area. And in 2040, about 2/3 of existing buildings will still be around. So these are just a couple of really compelling reasons to focus on making commercial buildings more efficient. We feel that all districts play an important role in their cities. As of today, there are 23 2030 districts across North America. Cleveland was the second city to create a district, so we're really proud of that. We've really been at the forefront of this movement. Again, this is a voluntary movement, so buildings join us voluntarily. We collect and analyze utility data from them. We keep that data confidential, but we report out on a district-wide level annually. We also provide building owners with building performance reports that allow them to see how their building is performing over time in our three metrics, relative to our targets and relative to similar buildings. Here in Cleveland, with no benchmarking policy or building tune-up policy, Cleveland 2030 District is really the only organization that has that kind of utility data on a broad scale. And if Cleveland ever decides to implement some kind of a benchmarking ordinance, our 2030 district members would be in a position to comply immediately. Because we use Energy Star Portfolio Manager, that's an EPA platform that I think all cities really use to report on benchmarking policies. That's the tool we use. So consequently, our buildings would be able to comply immediately. And of course, the district would be in a position to help all buildings in Cleveland comply with such an ordinance. We're also in a great spot to help the city in its many initiatives like the Climate Action Plan, Circular Economy, Clean Energy by 2050. The district's goals and mission are really very aligned with all of the city's initiatives. And as Chief Wood said in his opening remarks yesterday and again today, an objective for the city is to reduce emissions. And that's what Cleveland 2030 District does for the built environment. We can be a valuable partner to Cleveland to achieve that platinum status. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of how much progress we've made, we're very proud of this. This is as of year-end 2020. You can see the full report on our website, but we had 266 buildings participating, about 63 million square feet. That's about a 56% participation rate. We work in downtown Cleveland and in the University Circle area. As of today, actually, we're up to about 66 million square feet. But you can see our progress there in the bottom image. Our buildings collectively, from baseline, reduced energy by 32%, water by 39%, and transportation emissions by 49% at the end of 2020. Now, we understand that these numbers were impacted by the pandemic. Energy use not as much as the other two because, as you can imagine, buildings can't really shut down their system. So whether they were partially occupied or fully occupied, a lot of our buildings were still fully occupied. buildings can't shut down systems. So we didn't see a huge decrease in energy use because of the pandemic. We did see larger reductions in both water and transportation emissions, which makes sense. Less people in buildings to use water and less people on the road commuting. Just to give you an idea of who our members are, large and small, government, private, nonprofit. We have quite a diverse group of building owners who have taken the pledge to commit to the 2030 district goals. The city of Cleveland, as a matter of fact, was our first member. We're very proud of that. But as you can see, we've really grown over the years and have quite an array of members who have joined us. Our model is really very simple. We engage commercial properties to join us, pledge to achieve our goals, and then we connect them with all of these professional partners who have pledged to support the 2030 district mission and goals. They provide their products and services, many times discounts. Again, we're just trying to make those connections so that if one of our property owners needs assistance, if they need to develop a roadmap, or maybe they already have a roadmap, they need to implement some projects, these professional partners can offer support in that regard. And then we have a number of community partners who support us. All of these organizations have like-minded missions to the Cleveland 2030 district. They support us in a variety of ways. For example, we host a building education series. Many of these folks help us organize those sessions. They're available to the public, by the way, and you can find those on the 2030 district website under events. But as you can see, between property members, professional partners, community partners, we've really developed this community of stakeholders that are committed to the built environment. And as I wrap up here, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our funders and top-level sponsors. Of course, we've got many more sponsors than what I've got on the screen, but these are the top-level sponsors. Our heartfelt thanks to these folks, because without them, we certainly could not do the work of the 2030 district. And there's my contact information. If anyone has a building that would like to join the 2030 district, or if you'd like to sponsor the 2030 district or just have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. And with that, we'll turn it over to Sarah to talk about some more of the wonderful things going on at Metro Health.
Thanks, Jason. Let me just get my slides up here. Hi, everyone. As Kristen said, or Jason said rather, I am Sarah O'Keefe, the Director for Sustainability and Environmental Stewardship at the Metro Health System. And in the LEED for Cities session overview, one of the things that David Abel mentioned and materials and resources, but very specifically construction and demolition debris. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about what's happening at Metro Health's main campus and those efforts. This is a photo of our rendering, rather, of our new inpatient tower, which if you are anywhere near the Metro Health curve on 71, you should be able to see just fine. It is 11 stories, 9 patient levels. So this is about 700,000 square feet, this inpatient tower that is nearly completed on the outside. We're working on the inside right now. We're also planning and will be under construction for what we're calling the Apex project, an outpatient tower that will be located a little bit south of this inpatient tower. And that's another 300,000 square feet. So the campus transformation, for those of you who might not be familiar with it, is what we're calling our reinvigoration of our campus, our main medical campus along West 25th and just south of downtown Cleveland. This came about because we were looking to be more resilient as an organization. In 2014, the strong polar vortex really affected our operations, froze some pipes. We had some flooding. We were not able to use a couple of hundred beds, but we didn't close down. But we did do an evaluation and realized we really need to revitalize our buildings and our infrastructure. If you want to learn more about that effort, there's a website right here. It's also in the chat. I believe that Patty put it in there. Thank you, Patty. metrohealth.org/transformation. When I came on as the sustainability director in 2018, we were just starting our planning, our LEED. We're seeking LEED Silver on this building, and we're talking about waste. What can we do about waste and waste management? And in 2017, I'll just go back 1 year before, I wanted to talk about, we know where waste goes. In Ohio, a lot of our waste goes to landfills. I think that's pretty standard across the nation. We have a lot of land. We take a bit of that land and we put waste there. I also had the fortune a few years ago of living in Japan, an island nation that does not have so much land, and they seem to incinerate a lot more of their waste. So I think this average, I thought it was interesting in David's overview earlier today when he said that we performed as a city of Cleveland on LEED for Cities average. It was an average performance. And I wonder about land and land use in landfills. I'm showing here today that landfills affect environmental and human health. There are a couple of reports here. I don't think that these links will be available, but I can put them in the chat after I'm done here. The hidden damage of landfills, this is a report from the Environmental Center and the University of Colorado Boulder. And a couple of quotes. The most pressing environmental concern regarding landfills is the release of methane gas, which we know is a contributor to climate change, and all of the different impacts that climate change has on health, not just environmental health, but also human health. If you see in the center there, the minority and low-income areas are more likely to find themselves home to landfills and hazardous waste sites. Really a very extreme local example that I think a lot of us are familiar with was the East Cleveland Arco construction and demolition debris recycling site. I have that in quotes because if you can see from this picture, and many of you will recall, that this site had over 200,000 cubic yards of waste that was piled up in a neighborhood of East Cleveland. In 2017, it was shut down. And earlier this year, a judge fined the contractor $30 million over this dump. I'm showing these pictures that you can see very physically how landfills can impact not only environmental health, but a neighborhood, right outside a neighborhood. So for Metro Health, we are focused on not just delivering medical care, but also delivering good health care. And that means addressing all the determinants of health. So when we think about our own waste and our own waste management, this was really a driver. Going to a couple of frameworks, I already mentioned LEED for our building that we were seeking, but we're also, a lot of you probably know, working with a lot of different partners in the Metro West Development Organization, the City of Cleveland, Cleveland Foundation. We were working on a master plan for the Clark Fulton neighborhood alongside of our own campus transformation. And eco districts was a framework that we wanted to use for that planning. Eco districts directly speaks about climate and resources and the restoration of those resources with a goal to move towards a net positive world. And one of those objectives there is to divert waste from landfills. So in thinking about managing our own waste, it aligned with our efforts in helping to build an eco district. And there's a website for you there, ecodistricts.org, to learn more about that. And very specifically in LEED, materials and resources, and we're thinking about a goal for our waste management for our LEED efforts. We can see that in 2009, here were the 50% or 75% diversion got you 1 point or 2 points. And then LEED V4, the same thing, but there were additional requirements. There were more robust waste management plan was required. Alternative daily cover, which is the cover that is put on top of a landfill each day, did not count any longer as diversion, whereas it did before. Land clearing, debris, and soil is always excluded. We had many, many cubic yards of soil that was dug out of our campus and transported to Clark Field, which was great because it was clean fill and it's going to help rebuild a park, but we don't count that as diversion. A great story, it doesn't count as diversion. So all of this to say, it's more and more challenging to get above 75% diversion as LEED sees it. So we were thinking, what should our goal be? Well, we are also a member of Practice Green Health, which is a sustainable healthcare organization. There you go, practicegreenhealth.org. And their benchmark nationally is to have an 80% diversion goal. So that's where we landed. We looked at eco districts, we looked at LEED, we looked at Practice Green Health, and we thought that we could achieve this. So that is our stated goal for major projects, is 80% diversion from landfill for construction and demolition debris. On the Glick Center, their performance so far is in 2020, we hit 89%, so we're surpassing that goal. We just demolished a skilled nursing facility called the Elizabeth Prentice Center. The services are still available, but that building is no longer there. The Apex outpatient building will take that land and use that land more efficiently. In 2021, the diversion rate so far tracking is 86%. So we're doing really well on that goal. But another opportunity came up with the Prentice decommissioning and deconstruction. We demolished Prentice, and it's not just a building like a parking garage that we demolished for our Glick Center, which is concrete and steel. The Prentice Center had furniture, it had fixtures, it had medical equipment, it had paper towel holders and hand sanitizer holders. And what did we do with all of these things? We intentionally took the time and a lot of planning to salvage, reuse, and donate prior to demo. Over 60,000 pounds estimated, we didn't weigh everything, were donated or reused by either Metro Health or other regional healthcare organizations. Some donations to nonprofit organizations are listed here: Cleveland Furniture Bank, Edna House for Women, the Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry Men's Shelter, and then also MedWish, which is a medical supplies reuse organization, great nonprofit. So we were able to reuse a lot of this equipment. Not listed here are a generator and a compactor that were also redeployed throughout the system. I just wanted to share this story because I think when we intentionally plan for how to responsibly manage our waste, especially when we're constructing a new building, that we can have a larger impact than if we go an easier route. And I think in terms of LEED for Cities, that this kind of model as a large property owner could work for many others here in Cleveland. And I do not have a contact slide for myself, but I'm at sokeefe@metrohealth.org if you have any questions or want to reach out, and I'll put that in the chat. And with that, I will stop sharing.
All right, thank you, Sarah. It's an amazing project, an amazing kind of effort to keep all of that waste out of landfills. It's great work. With that, we'll turn it over to Marie to talk a little bit about what the sewer district is up to. So Marie, the floor is yours.
First, I want to make sure I'm not choppy.
You are good.
Please let me know, chat, so if you can send me start to fall apart. Here goes.
Breaking up a little bit.
Breaking up a little bit, Sarah. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud. Yes, a little bit.
Okay, I appreciate honesty, so I'm going to turn off my video. I'd rather you hear the content than have now my sound. Okay, I'm going to assume that it is. Just check. Go back to the chat. Okay, looks good. Okay. Okay, so we are super excited that the city of Cleveland earned the LEED for Silver for cities.
Marie,
yes.
we no longer see your slides, so you might need to just reshare. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thanks, Kristen. All right.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
We can see you, and you sound much better, so thank you.
Okay. Whew, okay. So sustaining finite resources is what we're going to be chatting about. So hopefully you all know that our work is clean water, and we're thinking about the lake and the rivers and streams that are within our service area when we keep that in mind. And we've been working to sustain these finite resources since 1972 with the creation of the sewer district. The photo here on the left is from 1976. And so you can just imagine the progress that has been made. And if you would go under the water, on the right from 2019, you see one fish, but there were actually 71 different species of fish in the Cuyahoga River at the time. And back to 1968, there were 2. So there's been an above and below water increase in water quality, which of course has a huge impact on our natural ecosystems and the quality of life in our region. So all of you probably know that we have 3 wastewater treatment plants that serve 1 million customers in the area. We also, though, as a part of our work since 1986, have been doing ecosystem assessments, which was a part of the prerequisite for LEED for Cities. So we look at the habitat, fish and insects. We look at the causes and sources of problems. We make recommendations. And most importantly, we share these details with other local agencies so that we can work together and partner and sort of share out the work and make decisions together. And this helps with planning and making good decisions. So keep that in mind. And we're going to go from our water resources to operational resources in our case, which would be utility usage. So we have a sustainability plan, which we launched in 2021, and that reiterates our focus on reducing energy, reducing waste, and better understanding our footprint. So we want to, be a part of our community and make reductions in all of those areas. So one of the key goals we have was reducing electricity overall by 23%. So we wanted to focus on big items, like big ticket items, so blowers, pumps. Some of our spaces are lit 24/7, so being mindful of those spaces where we get a payback. And then we also have this big goal of procuring 50% renewable electricity by Q2 2022. And this is really to hit on that greenhouse gas emissions effort that we've been chatting about today and yesterday as well. So our southerly plant, water treatment plants in the state of our administrative offices and lab maintenance and outlying sites, but pump stations that help us do our day-to-day work, but they take a little bit less electricity. However, overall, we have a very large load. We're very, very aware of this, and we want to do our best to reduce the carbon footprint of this electricity usage. So previously in 2019, we did a competitive procurement where we procured 50% renewable electricity at these same sites. It allowed us to join the Green Power Partnership, which if you're not familiar with the US EPA's Green Power Partnership, it's a great way that we can work together to promote the use of renewable electricity. It's a way to tell the market that we're very interested in green power so that we can get more out there for all of us. So the organization of our size, you'd only need 7% renewable energy to be a partner. And we actually, of our total electricity usage, because some of our sites are on CPP, it was 35% total renewable electricity. So we're really proud of that. It also allowed us to rank within a top 20 leader for local governments and government-like agencies. So we really want to sustain this commitment. And if you have been watching the energy market, the Energy Information Agency, so the nominal US residential electricity price about 12 to over 13. So it's a big increase. You may have seen news about the natural gas hitting an all-time peak over the last few weeks. And then there's also the increased demand for renewable energy with organizations like Amazon and Facebook buying gigawatts of renewable electricity. So that means that there's a really hot renewable electricity market. And makes it sort of a funny market right now, as those of us who are going out into the market looking at renewables are very well aware of. So how does the sewer district handle a tough electricity market? Do you have the pun? We roll with it. So how we're doing that is we're looking at options to sustain this commitment. We really would like to reach our goal. And so that means looking at all supply options out on the table. So we want to be very mindful of whether it's a retail solution, whether it's a wholesale solution, that we're putting everything out on the table that will help us to meet that goal of 50% renewable electricity. We're also investigating aggregation. So if you're unfamiliar with aggregation, it's when you go to the wholesale market, and it's kind of like if you don't have enough volume within your household to purchase at a club, and you ask your neighbor, like or something or other, and then you split it after. So it's similar to that, where and you go in together. It allows you to shop on the supply of renewable electricity, and sometimes also on the renewable energy attribute. So we are looking into that, and there are folks on this call that are well aware that we are interested, and folks that are in the meeting that are not well aware of this. So, you know, we're out there, we're looking for partners, and we're very hopeful that through a smart look at the market, it'll help us to meet our commitment. And then if you go into the circular and waste management, this is also an area, and we're helping further down those the amount of waste that goes to landfill in our region. Of right now is our water, and then biosolid incinerator ash. Incinerator ash is a waste product that things they're been landfill a number of years ago. What could be done with it? Doing some tests, trying it out, and option, which was so we work with a local partner to do the research. We work very closely to get the needed to make that happen. And as a result, since 2018, all of our ash has been diverted from the landfill. It helps to add phosphorus and other important key ingredients into the soil so that it's healthier. As we heard yesterday, our soils sometimes lack nutrients, and so this is a way to add those organics back in. And during the project, we saved around $900,000, and importantly, we saved 75,000 tons of organic waste from going into the landfill and beneficially reusing it. So we're really pleased with that. It also cut down on the 80-mile round trip drive to the landfill. So we're also saving on greenhouse gas emissions, we're reducing trucking. So it's a really great project that we're very proud of. We're also looking at other opportunities, so stay tuned for reducing waste. And making sure that I get to my time goal here, we're also looking at measuring and managing our footprint. So that means completing our greenhouse gas reports for 2020 and 2019, which we're doing now, and then enhancing our energy management tools. So we have a clear, better dashboard of what are we using on all of our utilities, so we can start to find opportunities to reduce those and to be very strategic and thoughtful, so that in the end, we are saving money and we're enhancing the environment all around us. So small child here, sometimes we all feel like we're making small baby steps towards sustainability, yet I wanted to reiterate that those small steps add up, and collectively together, we are making strides that are bigger, kind of like the shadow you see here. The impact that we have all together is much greater, and we are thrilled to be part of making this Cleveland a greener city on a blue lake. And with that, I will stop sharing. Hopefully you heard me. And
we heard you. It got a little spotty in the middle there, Marie, but otherwise, I think I'd say a good 75% of it came through pretty well.
I'll take it.
Yeah, right? So I think first I want to just invite our audience to ask any questions to our presenters. We do have some questions for you as the audience, but we'll probably maybe just do one question each, depending on what we have. Marie, we've got a question. How/where is the ash being added into soil?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We're partnered with Kurtz Brothers, and they are using the ash. We know that in test plotting that the growth of soil, the addition of it to the soil, it significantly increases the growth of the plants, the robustness of the growth, and also the root structure. So it really helps the roots and the plants to be more resilient, which is a important factor, especially when we've got this sort of spiky rain and interesting changes in our climate.
Awesome. I'm not seeing a lot of questions in the chat, so if you all are comfortable with it, first I want to thank you for your awesome presentations and just sharing the great work that you're all doing here. I think that was why we wanted to bring you together. Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you as I pull up the jam boards. I'm going to be kind of quiet in the background. Given our time, I'm going to try to keep it to about 3 minutes a question. I know that's kind of fast, but we'll do what we can here. I'm also going to ask, I think we had originally talked about turning people's cameras on for time purposes. Let's just keep it all in the chat. And then I'm going to start sharing now.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. So Kristen's going to pull up the Jamboard. I think we want to kind of work through a few questions here. So I think the first question here, Kristen, is kind of looking at where we're at. So where do we feel that Cleveland is making progress in energy and GHG emissions and or materials and resources? So as you kind of think through that, go ahead and drop some ideas in the chat, I think. Is that what we're looking for, Kristen? I'm getting thumbs up from Kristen. So where are we seeing ideas here? Or to our panelists. If our panelists have ideas, feel free to kind of chime in as well.
I just wanted to say, I think that I forgot to mention that Metro Health just joined the 2030 district this year in June. We are not in downtown Cleveland, nor are we in University Circle, but we're close by. So I think having commitments, even though we might not be a part of it, and looking at the goals and committing to them, tracking them, seeing where we are, I think that's really important. And, in the things that I talked about with our materials and resource reuse and demolition, debris recycling, we're not just tracking for LEED. We also are thinking about reusing things. For example, the soil that was transported just down the road at, less than a mile away to Clark Field, like that's a really big deal. And we were able to accomplish that because our subcontractors working for our main contractor figured that out, and it was a cost savings. It was great for our environment. It was great for our community. So I think those kinds of examples, it's not always going to be certified and on a checklist, but I think when we do that, it gets a lot more visibility. So I think those efforts, as we more and more see more and more people taking part in these kinds of efforts publicly and publicly reporting on them, I think that is really great for both of these, energy and materials and resources. Marie, I didn't know any of this about the sewer district and reusing the ash. That was really a great story. So thanks for sharing that today.
And we're so glad to have you join us, Sarah, Metro Health. Even though you're not within our boundary, Cleveland 2030 District does accept buildings who are outside of our boundary. We're happy to have any building who wants to participate. I would maybe add to the Jamboard. I know this has been a complicated topic, but benchmarking ordinance, building tune-up policies, it doesn't have to be a full-blown benchmarking policy, but even a building tune-up policy. I know a couple of the other 2030 districts have implemented those, and they've made great progress with that kind of thing.
Excellent. So I think, Cindy, let me follow on to that as a question then, because I think you just kind of sparked something in my mind. So when you look at the buildings who have joined 2030 District, whether they're in the footprint or they're outside of the footprint, what do you see as kind of the biggest motivator for them? So how should we be having this conversation? What's driving buildings to participate in something like the 2030 District?
I think there's a number of factors that strike a chord with our building owners. They're all committed to environmental stewardship, for sure. They're all interested in making their buildings more operationally efficient. So it's the save money factor. But one thing that I see time and time again with all of our members when I talk about advancing the mission of the Cleveland 2030 District, and that we're one of the few cities in the country, 23 across North America that have a 2030 district. That civic pride comes through. Clevelanders are very proud of Cleveland and have a lot of civic pride, and advancing these goals, they're happy to be part of any kind of an initiative that does that.
Great. So, Kristen, I don't know if you want to think about maybe jumping to the next one and see if we can get some of the folks from the audience to kind of chime in here. So our next question, where we could be. So what are some of the big ideas to ramp up our efforts in energy and greenhouse gas emissions and or materials and resources? So what should we be focusing on to see the greatest impact? So I'd love to hear from folks in the audience while we wait for that. I don't know, Marie or Sarah, if you'd like to kind of talk about some of the big ideas that you're seeing as we wait for the chat to pop in, but what should we be focused on? Where can we really make some progress here?
Sorry, I don't know if Marie can come off mute, but Marie and I have had lots of great discussions about the idea of looking at our energy supply, both of our organizations' energy supply. And even if we're not able to achieve immediately a few of the big goals, I'm just going to go back to that picture of that step. I think having steps towards a big goal is important. I think the greatest impact on a small step would be for talking about it, having organizations, large organizations, talk about their energy use and what they're trying to do. So I think that's a really good part of it. We Better Health Partnership is coming up. I don't know if a lot of folks on the line are familiar with that, but Better Health Partnership is a nonprofit organization that works with different healthcare organizations, and we are Metro Health and 4 other hospitals in the Northeast Ohio region are talking about their energy use and their carbon footprints together. So that's an example of a small step, but taking it together, talking first and then collaborating, I think, to make those big goals happen.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think Marie is probably sitting at the intersection of a lot of these conversations, because we've had some similar discussions about looking at kind of how we can, if not a joint procurement, but in a way to kind of leverage some of the collective purchasing power of the city as we do these things. And I think our long-term strategy has to be focused from our perspective on adding that additionality, right? So we've tried to do a lot through renewable energy credits, and that's one strategy, but it doesn't have that economic impact here locally and that kind of equity impact that we'd like to see. And really looking at how do we leverage the purchasing power at the city of Cleveland and through our utilities, and really trying to leverage that ability to create some additionality and some growth in clean energy generation here locally is a key one. I think Divya chimed in the chat that moving to EV for fleet. I know the sewer district probably has a fairly large fleet. Sarah, I'm not sure what Metro Health's fleet is like. Probably not huge, but
No.
but
We have a couple of helicopters and a few ambulances. Actually, though, we are getting more remote vehicle, satellite vehicles for during 2020. We deployed I think I just went on mute. We have discussions about making them lower emissions, but it's really difficult to find an electric vehicle, electric ambulance.
Yeah, we've had at the city, we have a very large fleet. That is something we are very committed to, is trying to get as much of our fleet converted to electric, particularly our passenger and light duty vehicles, which number in the thousands for us. And I think we've got a pretty good approach to get there by 2035. We've had a lot of discussions about those larger heavy duty vehicles and some of those bigger things as well. And I think there are some encouraging signs on that from a large heavy duty vehicle, whether it's one of our construction trucks, bucket trucks, school buses, those sorts of things. We'll be able to get there, I think, hopefully in the not too distant future. I see a comment from David November that looking at encouraging internal carbon pricing for planning purposes in larger organizations when making capital decisions related to energy. So I think that's another really, really strong idea. I don't know if anybody wants to react to David's idea.
I would love to propose that, and in fact, I will.
So progress happening. Thank you, David, for that one. Kristen, I don't know if you want to jump to the next question just to kind of keep us on schedule here. Oh, and Divya just chimed in with an understanding embodied carbon in purchasing, which I think goes back to that last one as well. So understand.
I'm just going to chime in on that really quickly. We are, a lot of healthcare organizations are getting more and more involved in that conversation on embodied carbon, because our friends in the architectural and engineering world have done so much here on offering tools for us to be able to evaluate embodied carbon on new builds. So we're having those conversations with, in this past year, we've had a couple conversations at Metro Health with our construction manager, Turner. And so those conversations are happening. It's very exciting. Thank you for mentioning embodied carbon.
And we're having those conversations as well as at the Cleveland 2030 district level.
Carbon isn't just be for thing to about. You could add, for example, that can help to reduce. So, for example, LSM, which is like could be reduce the carbon footprint. So, and just continuing to be innovative. Important.
All right, we lost you a little bit there, Marie. So, Kristen, you want to go ahead and hop? We're adding here. So, our next question: how do we get there? So, what should we aim to do in the next 6 months to 1 year to set us on the path to success? Right. So, what are the big ideas that we should be working on in the next 6 months to 1 year? So, recognizing that a lot of this can be longer term stuff. What can we get started on right away? Cindy, do you want to take a crack while we wait for the folks in the chat to drop in?
Well, I guess I kind of want to go back to that either building tune-up idea or the benchmarking, and I understand those are complicated issues, and maybe the building tune-up idea is an easier one to implement. We have a couple of roadmaps available to us from other 2030 district cities who have done that, and it's really shown great progress if you're addressing the built environment anyway, in reducing emissions.
Sarah, anything you'd like to add on to that? Or
I mean, I like the idea of a building. I'm sorry, I can't remember what you just called it. You just said it, Cindy. A building
Tune-up.
building tune-up. I think that's an interesting. It's an interesting thought, especially, you know, I think it might be challenging for some to do something like that. I'm thinking of our own buildings that are, you know, over 100 years old. We have one that was built in 1912 that we still use daily. So but at the same time, I think it's very important to keep track of those kinds of things. I like the idea.
Yeah, and these policies can take into consideration building use types and so on and so forth, and building size, and they take into consideration all of those factors. But, you know, and I'm going to be shameless in my plug for 2030 district, but you know, we'd love to have more members, whether you're within our boundary or not. I think we can help the city reduce emissions from the commercial building sector, which, you know, is a huge, for my slides, right? 40% of global emissions. So anything we can do to get more commercial buildings involved. And then we also, you know, attack the water and the transportation. I find it really interesting that I sent out a survey recently. A number of our members are interested in installing EV chargers. And so that begs the question of, you know, how are they engaging tenants, employees in their transportation choices?
Mm-hmm. I can jump on that if you don't mind.
Go ahead,
Yesterday, you know, Metro Health, the reason why Metro Health earned the Gold Award yesterday from NOACA for the Commuter Choice Awards was because that is a lot of our work on helping our employees find other choices for commuting and reducing the single occupancy vehicle trips. It's interesting to me that in a city where we have so many opportunities for, we have public transit, we have walkability, we just have, I think, more of a habit of defaulting, even as in large employers, to the assumption that everybody's going to be driving a car. And as we look at these other options and we support them, I think those are very important for greenhouse gas emissions as well. I couldn't agree more.
And there are a number of ways that that employers can incentivize alternative transportation, for sure. I mean, there are a number of ways. We had a speaker at one of our education sessions, actually, Steve Mullink down in Cincinnati. They're doing fabulous things, even from incentivizing employees with cash bonuses to buy electric vehicles and do other alternative transportation activities.
Sure. One of the, that definitely has helped us at Metro Health for sure. We went from just, I think, 50 folks on our GoHio platform, a commute platform, to over 220 in the past year or so, because we're starting to incentivize things. And one of the things that we're doing is we don't have a cash bonus, but we're emphasizing the healthiness of alternative transportation modes. So if you carpool, you are contributing to, it's less negative than driving alone, right? And it's good for air pollution, it's good for chronic illness, asthma rates, all of these things that we face in Cleveland. And you earn discounts off of your health insurance premium. And that's not just riding a bike, right? It's riding a bike, walking, carpooling, or remote work, even if you're able to do that. If you're able to do remote work, you can self-log that and get insurance points off your insurance premium for the following year. And I just checked, and they told me, my Metro Healthy folks told me it was a cap of $800 for a year. But $800 for a year, that's not bad.
Not bad. I just got the sign from Kristen to move on to the next question. She's ready to go. So the next question is, who and what can we learn from? So what organizations, individuals, businesses, et cetera, are already working on this? What projects, programs, initiatives, policies, et cetera, are in place or planned that could help advance these efforts to achieve the big ideas? So I think the easy answer is 2030 district, Metro Health, and the sewer districts. But outside of the three who have talked here, who's doing this well? Like, who should we be looking to in Cleveland or outside of Cleveland to help us kind of understand this?
I want to give a shout out to smaller organizations that are collaborating together to do this in sync and in step. You know, one of the things that's contributing to LEED for Cities for Cleveland is the mayor's initiative, neighborhood initiative. And in Clark Fulton and in Slavic Village, the eco districts model is being followed, and bringing in community groups, community members, having that collective impact. I think that will also, again, move us forward. It's not, large organizations have a huge role, of course, but not leaving the community behind and having that collaborative moving forward is really important. And anchor districts such as Metro Health and others in Cleveland can really contribute that way as well.
And I think I would add that there are a number of associations that are working on this. So, for example, all of the sports, football, basketball, baseball. I mean, they have an association where they join and compare best practices for efficient buildings and stadiums and ballparks and so forth. I know colleges and universities have that. I think Dave November's in the audience. Maybe he can drop something in the chat about that. But as well as the healthcare sector has that kind of thing too. So there are a number of those kinds of associations doing good work.
So, Sarah, I think it's pulling in those smaller organizations is really important. And I think I don't want to assume everybody on here is familiar with what Metro Health is doing in conjunction with Metro West and some of that great work. Could you give kind of the elevator pitch of what that, because it's a great project and it's a great way for institutions to partner with communities and neighborhoods. And I want to make sure we have a little space to talk about that.
Sure. Just I'll try and make it 30 seconds. Real quick, Eco Districts is a framework that focuses on equity, resilience, both social and environmental, and health, and the climate protection. Those are the three pillars of Eco Districts. When the Clark Fulton neighborhood was going out for a master plan, Councilwoman Santana was collaborating with the Metro West Community Development Organization. And then Metro Health also wanted to help in the neighborhood leverage this $1 billion economic investment on our campus and advance health and equity in the neighborhood. And along with the city of Cleveland, we all got together in the Cleveland Foundation and used the Eco Districts model to really engage. It's all about engaging the community. There's structural and generational equity lenses in there. I encourage you to go to ecodistricts.org to find out more about it. But we work together to launch a master plan that focuses on all of these things and advances that climate protection piece is also in there. And we talk about transportation and health and equity. It's a sustainable neighborhood, but also a healthy neighborhood. And it's one more thing, it's designed by community engagement. So the roadmap that's coming out, and we have performance reporting every single year on that. So that will be out in the next, the end of this year.
Yeah, having gone through the AP certification for it, it's a great approach, and seeing the way that it's been implemented there has been fantastic. So it looks like we are right at time, if I'm not mistaken, correct, Kristen? So as we wrap this up, any final thoughts? Cindy, I see Marie and Sarah. Any final thoughts you want to share with the group before we kind of wrap this up?
I'll say we have a number of education sessions coming up. Check our website. I think they would be of interest to this group.
Mm-hmm. And thanks for all you're doing at the City of Cleveland to pursue the LEED for Cities. I think it's really great and wonderful job. Congratulations on your silver.
Thank you. It was truly a team effort. And Marie, you get the last word because you were super helpful as we put the application together on the ecosystems assessment. So you get the last word, Marie.
I would just say that continuing to make connections at events like these is really critical. And also the Circular Cleveland. We've already had an opportunity to talk with some counterparts at other types of organizations. So it's great because there is district to tie into. And so we really value these opportunities to connect with thanks. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for this. We have another 4 sessions of breakouts the rest of the day. 1 more before lunch, 3 after lunch, I believe.
No, we have just 3 more after lunch.
3 more after lunch. Sorry, I tried to get more. I tried to get more work for Kristen.
Thanks,
No,
Jason.
please, take a break. We'll see you guys back here in the afternoon for some really interesting discussions. Thanks for participating in this today. Thanks to our panels. Thanks to the Cleveland Public Library, and we'll see everybody a little bit later today.
Sure. One quick thing, I'll invite you if you're around at 2:15 today and want to join our dashboard discussion. It's going to kind of continue the conversation that we started with our LEED for Cities overview, hopefully touch on some of the stuff that we covered here, and again, be a little bit more interactive so you can give some of your input. So hopefully you can join us then, and have a great lunch, everyone.